This conference will now be recorded.
Jeff Wood from the Oasis of Hope Church here. Okay, since he is not here, the invocation we'll have from Bill Shanahan, our town administrator.
Please bow your head. Father God, we just thank you for the opportunity to be here. This is the first meeting of this year, Lord God. And we would ask that starting from today that we have your wisdom, your understanding, your patience, your honesty, your ethics, and just guide us for this whole year, Father God. Nobody comes to power unless you allow it, Lord God, and we understand that. And we would ask just respect and understanding for the decisions that are made, and we would ask that our citizens, if they need help to understand, that they come to us, they give us the opportunity to just fill them with the knowledge of what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it. And we would ask this through your son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, are there any motions relating to the agenda? Okay, moving right along, the next thing is the minutes approval for December 14th, which was a regular meeting, and December 16th, which was a special meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 14th regular session and December 16th special meeting as presented.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on the meeting before we vote on it? All right, Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Keating,
Yes.
Kreklaw,
Yes.
Kinkin,
Yes.
Drake,
Yes.
and I'm a yes too. So it's unanimous, that passed 7-0. Next thing is public comments, and these are public comments based on the agenda items only. Good evening.
An item, Gary White, 315B Lakeside Drive. And under his business parking committee, resolution 22-144. I tried to click on that, couldn't read it, I couldn't find it. So I just wanted to read it for it was there. So it doesn't. I wonder, I really wanted to read it. I was thinking of joining that committee and I couldn't read it. Thank you.
And during, there we go. Thank you. Are there any other public comments tonight based on the agenda items? Okay, moving right along. The next thing we're going to do is go into the communication section and get an update on the pier.
I'm gonna, hello, okay, I'm here. Good evening. I'm going to give you a little update of what's going on, and we've actually got a flyover that was done. It's several flyovers from drones, so we figured we'd show that as well. And looks like go ahead, you go first. And that is actually on our webpage if anybody would like to see it. Okay, so what are we doing right now? We've completed the podium slab with concrete, the concrete podium slab, excuse me. We're removing the exterior formwork around the podium. The concrete compression strength has exceeded 73% per the 7-day break, so that is very good. Metal build and panelized system has begun to be delivered, and erection will start on January 17th. But the structural steel columns for building A, which is a restaurant, have been erected. The beams are currently 95% complete. The marine contractor has installed the first 3 ocean power bends. The marine contractor plans to drive the ocean power bends 4 and 5 on the week of January 10th. The marine contractor has installed the first 4 power bends for the trestle, and the additional structural support members that the crane sits on are being installed. And that's important because if they don't do that right, that crane goes in the water. So we don't want that to happen. The trestle continues out into the ocean. It's going to go out another 300 feet. And what you have to remember is once the pier is completed, we're going to take the trestle down. That's part of the project. And we intend to have the concrete sleeves on the Ocean Powers Bend 1 through 5 installed by the end of the month. So right now we're going out into the water, we're putting the powers in, and then we're going over where the slab has been put on the pier, and you're going to start see buildings coming up. So it's doing 2 things at once, but consensus is up to the task, and they're doing a good job. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just one question. Last status report I saw from Consensus, there were a number of items outstanding that requests for information of information's not being responded to, input for the changes requested by the Surf Diner have not been received as of yet. What are we doing to expedite those responses? Are we giving them a deadline after which we proceed with the original design? You know, I want to avoid additional rework cost or delay charges because we're waiting for input that's not being expeditiously received as required by the contract.
Yes, I actually sent them an email today based on the same information and requesting that we get that information by the end of the week. We need this information to move on. We will reach a point and they will know about it well before it happens that we have to move on. And then once that happens, any changes that would be needed because of that would be at their cost if we were able to do them. Because what you have to remember is you put a concrete slab in and you're putting holes in and you're putting the piles underneath and the beams all underneath it. Once they're in, it's real hard, real difficult, and real costly to remove them, change them, put holes in them. So we are staying on top of it. And I'm not the only one that's been trying to contact them. Consensus has had so if we don't hear something soon, we will be moving on, and then it'll be on them. We've done everything we can do.
Do we have an accounting of how much they've cost is incurred by what they've requested against the allocation of the $200,000?
I know I have briefed Consensus and Collins to keep a record of that on either side, and both of them have let me know they are actually doing that. I can't tell you what those numbers are, but if you would like, I could ask them to get me what they already have.
Yeah, just, I mean, it's a ballpark where we're at.
Yeah, because any of that comes from the contract, the money that's in the contract. Yes, ma'am.
They've been told to stop at 200,000 and let us know so that they don't exceed their.
It is not going to go over 200,000. They have been briefed how much money is available. Anything above that, the restaurant folks would have to approve it because it'd be coming out of their pocket.
Is there any other questions about the pier update?
They are doing an amazing job when you go out there and see it. And I know some of y'all have been out with me. Yeah, the council brought in some good people and they are doing a good job.
You really can't see it. You could see a little bit in the video, but when you get up on that podium, when you get up above where they poured the concrete, that is a heck of a view. And that whole, it is huge up there. It's supposed to be in the same footprint that of the old pier, but it's huge. It is absolutely huge.
I think it's interesting that they used 88 truckloads of concrete to pour that one day. 88 loads is a lot of concrete. That's around 800 yards of concrete.
And I was talking to them the other day and they said that they had to wait before they could do anything to get for it to cure enough so that it gets to the PSI where they can build on top of it. And their recommendation on it was that the PSI has to be at 4,000. And they said that they had it tested the other day and it is at 6,000. So we have a pretty sturdy concrete. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Okay, the next it says discussions, motion pertaining to discussion minute. We don't have any discussion that I know of unless somebody has any. Okay, under the business, we have the Surfside Beach Community Garden Center. And this is a resolution. Okay, do we have any input on that?
Yeah, well, Mr. Mayor, since we've never formally established this committee, I think it's a little premature to be discussing charters, missions, and so forth. I think what we need, similarly to the parking committee, is to take this input from the team managing the community garden this last year and create the resolution to formally establish the community garden committee.
So the question is does anybody have any questions? Everybody has in their packet the Community Gardens Program Charter that was written up. Has everybody reviewed it and everybody agree that based on the resolution that is everything in there that needs to be in there? Let's have a discussion on that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
everything that is done so far down there really does look good. And talking with Laura and Yvette and over the past few months, they've worked really hard on putting this together. And the amount of vegetables they're growing is unbelievable. Turning them out. And a lot of community involvement, a lot of different people. And last time I talked to Sherry, they had, I think, one. I think coming next year to be full again. And people are planting winter stuff as we speak now, collards, stuff like that along the line.
Well, there's still stuff growing over there because I was over the other day and we're here this winter and everybody's got cabbage and everything else growing.
Oh, yeah. It's doing a great job.
So we're going to put this on the next agenda for a resolution.
Yes, sir.
Is there any other comments on this before we move on? Okay, the next thing is the parking.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
We have a comment.
She's trying to catch your attention.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know that this is going to change council's course of action at all, but the ordinance is required to be in writing a resolution. The introduction, state council tax by ordinance or resolution, and ordinance is not required to do. There's no previous ordinance. So, introduction of resolution. A motion is considered to be an introduction or a resolution which requires no written resolution.
This is ridiculous.
A resolution that is requesting writing should be introduced in the same manner as the ordinance. So council can.
Don't know how to get in the
Resolution, council acts by motion, there is no ordinance required.
speakerphone on.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think the basis of the resolution being the establishment of a committee that needs to set forth the number of participants, the scope, the mission, when the meetings are going to be, et cetera. There's a lot of information that has to come forward with that resolution that would not be in a verbal motion. So I think it's prudent for the record keeping and to make sure we're all on the same page, that this is a resolution that's brought forward in writing, similar to the way we're handling the recreation of the parking committee.
Any other comments? Okay.
I just wanted you to know what you're.
Yeah, I understand, and I thank you for that. I thank you for that.
We'll have it for you.
All right, the next thing is Parking Committee, Resolution 22-144. Is there any comment on that?
Mr. Mayor, in reading the proposed resolution, the only comment I had was to be more specific as to the number of members anticipated on the committee. Instead of saying an odd number of members not to exceed 7, I would prefer that it say the committee shall consist of 7 members, to be clear. So that in the future, we know when there are openings and how many are to be filled.
Okay, this is the first reading. Is there any other comments on it? Any other discussion? Mr. Stamey?
No, sir.
Elise?
Sorry, Mayor.
I see you there.
It's a resolution.
I mean, right. the
Yeah.
resolution on this reading,
Okay.
that this is the first reading,
Okay,
because this will be the actual act.
got you. All right,
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor.
Stamey, do you have any comments?
No, sir.
Holder? Katie? Other than the ones you just made?
No.
Yes, sir.
I was just gonna say is, I think it's way overdue for this, but, I think everybody needs to be in the consideration with the parking committee. The reason I was looking forward to this too was the aspect of as Surfside grows, and it's mainly our adjacent neighbors and neighborhoods grow, that our density and population on our beaches and our accesses, that when you decide to go to the beach, there's a parking place for you as a resident of Surfside Beach. And that's very, very important to me as a resident, and I think it should be to everybody else. I'm glad to see this come about.
Okay. Do I have a motion on the resolution?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to accept the resolution contingent upon the correction. I mentioned to stipulate that the committee will consist of 7 members.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion before we vote on it?
I don't know how to get
Mr.
to
Stamey.
speaker.
Yes.
Holder?
Yes.
Keating?
Yes.
Cricklaw?
Yes.
Hinkin?
Yes.
Drake?
Yes.
And myself is yes. So we now have a parking committee. Moving right along, next thing on the agenda is Harbor Lights. And
Turn that yours, I can't, mine don't work.
Yes, sir. Again, like I said at the last meeting, on October 13th and November 12th of 2013, the town of Surfside Beach and Harbor Lights HOA signed an ordinance 13-0765 stating that the town assumes responsibility for only standard fees for lighting fixtures, poles, and electric as with any other dedicated street within the town limits. The difference for the decorative lighting or poles is $3,400 per year approximately, which Harbor Lights HOA pays. The decorative light poles are monthly rentals from Santee Cooper. The town of Surfside Beach currently pays for them on Ocean Boulevard, Upper Surfside Drive, 3rd Avenue South Promenade, and 14 South. mostly because this is what underground wiring projects have been completed. Currently, the town of Surfside Beach does not pay for streetlights, and HOA run private developments as the roads are privately owned. So all privately owned roads pay for their own stuff. However, Harvard Lights is not a private development, it is underground wire, and the road has been accepted into the town system. So, you know, based on the fact that we're doing that for other places, my recommendation would have to be that we treat everybody the same. And so we did put together an ordinance in reference to that, but, you know, that would be my recommendation.
Okay. Do I have a motion on that? Let's do that before we have a discussion. There's,
Mr. Mayor, let me make a motion
Go ahead and do it.
to accept ordinance 22-0944. Pending my comment.
do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. In discussion, Mr. Stamey.
Yes, sir. My discussion is that we reached an agreement with the HOA and the homeowners back in 2013, and they agreed to pay this fee because they wanted the decorative lighting. I'm still at the point where the town is not overwhelmed with these lightings. We have them on a few streets. And to my opinion, according to me, I think they should continue to pay this. They agreed to pay it to get these lights. Until we receive more lighting, these nice lightings around town, I think they should continue to pay what they agreed to pay back in 2013.
Okay, Mr. Holder?
When it came to this, I asked the Bill yesterday, what is our cost for the lights on 14th Street South and Surfside Drive in those areas where we got these lights? Is it the same cost as they're requesting? We pay Santee Cooper, or we got a better deal? And he didn't know at that time.
Yeah, I still don't have that information.
And I
It'll
think
take a little while to
we
get.
need to know that to make a decision. And second, there's other HOAs in Surfside, other areas where we don't pay for lights. And so are we going to do it for everybody?
Okay. Ms. Keating?
Yeah, I think based on the discussion we had over this the first time, we said since the town has undertaken implementing these more decorative light fixtures throughout the town for the aesthetics of the town, that they would now be considered a standard product. So the ordinance here needs to be drafted in such a way that it amends the provisions of ordinance 13-0765, stipulating that the fixtures that are now part of the Harbor Lights development as of this point are considered standard and therefore would be subject to no additional change. So I think it's just a matter of if we are using this same decorative design throughout the town in whatever projects, that it is becoming our standard light fixture. So the way 13-0765 was written, it said the town pays for standard light fixtures. Any additional charge due to the decorative fixtures would be to the account of the HOA. If we consider these a standard for use within the town, then they would not be subject to an additional fee. So I think the ordinance needs to be written in that manner to modify the agreement that was reached in 2013, not totally repeal and supersede it, because there's other things within that ordinance talking about transition of the street maintenance, et cetera, within the development.
Thank you.
my thoughts are, yes, they did agree to pay for it. And my first reaction would be, let them keep paying for it. Streetlights, in my opinion, are more of a public safety item. You need one or two every block to, so you know somebody's coming up behind you, or you see somebody walking down the street towards you, you can somewhat prepare or go the other direction if you would choose to. I somewhat even disagree with the public or private developments, the PDs, that we maybe should even provide them with limited lighting also. I don't know how you go about doing that without opening up a Pandora's box, but in this case, I guess since we own the streets and the lights are already there, we should start paying for them.
I'm kind of opposed to it, and I'll tell you why. This was a development that I asked to see the agreement with the town and did not get a copy of it. But there were several things that were done, special signs, special lights, no trees. This development has very few hardwood trees. Now, even back then, 2008, when this was started,
Did you get it online?
started again, we had an ordinance that required them to have trees.
But I get the
They
speaker
put
on mine.
palm trees in, which we do not, in R3, we do not count our palm trees as a tree. It's a decorative. It doesn't mean you can't have them. So there were a lot of things that were agreed to. And we're not talking about a huge expense for the town or the individuals. It's less than $6 a month for the 49 houses that are there. I just feel like that it's under control right now. If we approve this, then we don't know how many more we're going to have to approve. And I would like us to, the mayor asked me, said, well, when would you do it? I said, well, I would do it when we start putting residential streets, underground wiring with the special lights. The ones that we've installed are on Surfside Boulevard. We did it for looks. Ocean Boulevard, we did it for looks. And I'm all for completing that, but we did not do it. Well, we also did it on 14th, and I'm not sure why other than a demo, 14th South. But I just don't think this is the time that we need to take on additional cost without really knowing how much we're taking on, because we're talking more than $3,400. I don't know what it is, because I don't know how many other HOAs, et cetera, are going to come back to us and say, well, if you did their lights, you need to do our lights. And I think that's a real possibility. And I would, right now, we have an agreement that's working, and I see no reason to change it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I've heard different ones comment on the fact that HOAs and the aspect of our town and the lighting process, but the Surfside and the builder built those roads to DOT standards and ditches and wiring sidewalks and stuff like that and the right of ways. Then they transferred that back to the town, and the town owns the roads. That's more than what another HOA would have. If they were never built to that standard, we would never take those roads. So we would not be taking anybody else's under those circumstances. But I think the HOAs, as far as in what they've been charged, could be questionable. Should have been charged if they deeded the road in the right of way. But I'm for it. It's because I think we need more lighting in Surfside. I think we need a few more decorative lighting, especially on Ocean Boulevard South. Needs to be more. And some of the other streets, we could use a few more. And it really does make our town really nice.
Okay, I've done a little work on it. Last meeting, we had a resident come up and tell us that there are other complexes and private developments that have their own homeowners association that we're not paying for the lights, and that we're not. So I went and investigated that, and the one that everybody's talking about is South Palm up there, and I went and did it. Well, the problem that you have there is they didn't give us the roads. we wouldn't take those roads because the roads are not made to SC dot standards and the roads are inferior. So we're not going to take over a product like that. The Harbor Lights, they went out of their way to do it and make it, make the roads whatever. And then they gave that real estate or they gave those roads back to the town. So I would think that since the roads belong to the town, that the town has a responsibility for lighting them. But that's my opinion on it, and that's where I stand on it. To answer Mr. Kinkin's thing where he said that he didn't know why 14th Street was done, I checked into that too. And that the reason 14th Street is done, we have a project to put sidewalks in the neighborhoods, and that's a progressive thing that we do every once in a while, but we only get it during certain times. So we put sidewalks on 14th Street. And part of putting the sidewalks in, we put the utilities underground. And part of putting the utilities underground, we can't use the regular telephone poles, or that defeats the purpose of putting them underground. So that's why we have the decorative lighting on there. So that's the answer to that. And I don't know what the town's process is, or we don't know right now on the next street that's going to get sidewalks or the next thing. We have some plans to put more sidewalks in, but nothing definitive at this time. But that's why 14th Street was done. Okay, well, based on what we have, let's go ahead and vote on that. Mr. Stamey.
No.
Holder.
Not knowing the cause, I say no.
Keating.
Yes.
Laverne.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Kinkin.
No.
Drake.
Yes.
And I'm a yes on that too. So that did pass on a 4-3. Next thing on the agenda is public comments, and these are public comments based on town services.
Chris voted no on it, but it still went past.
Good evening.
Good evening. Harry Coleman, 10th Avenue North. Want to speak up on about the parking committee. I'm glad you reinstated it. Hopefully you will listen to it like some of the councils did. Some of the councils refused to listen to the parking committee, especially about the E district. And now we have problems there. And what did the last council do? They fired them, as they fired the planning and zoning committee. So if you're not willing to listen to your citizens and people in the committee, don't have it. Please don't have it. People spent a lot of time and energy on those committees, making great recommendations.
Okay.
And saving us a lot of money and making us a lot of money. You had a parking committee just a few, maybe less than a year ago. We did absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because so many on council wanted to be in charge. Not the way it goes. You have only 7 weeks until the parking is back in effect. March 1st. And you know how government does things. You're gonna have a rough time trying to get stuff done before the parking enforcement's in effect. So hopefully, you're at least gonna vote in executive session today to pick people. One thing about the thing you said, to have 7 members, it should have been no more than 7 members. Because if you only have 3 members, you're just gonna not have it. That's the only thing I saw that was wrong with that. But we could do a lot of stuff. I don't know if you've been out of town, a lot of people don't leave this beautiful town. We have a development going up by Tupelo Bay. We have developments all over this county. And we have the best beaches, bar none, in the Grand Strand. And that's where they're coming. We don't have a lot of parking here, folks. And our most important people in this town are the residents, the second homeowners, and the tourists. And if the tourists have no place to park their golf cart or no place to sit on the beach, they're not coming. Believe me, I've been saying this for 10 years. You have to look at the big picture. It's nice to be nice to the people across 17, but they're not paying our taxes, and they're not paying the rents and the hospitality tax, and the accommodation tax that the tourists are paying. You have to keep that in mind. People buying them Piggly Wigglies across the way aren't paying for our services. They're not. And I'm not saying they can't come here. They absolutely can come here. But they should have to pay in some way or another a small fee to pick up the garbage, for the police service, the fire service. So you have to keep that in mind. When, this is like in the future, if the parking committee comes up with this stuff, you have to believe in that. And we had other council people that, oh, my friend can't park here now. He lives in Surfside Beach, Surfside Beach Club, and didn't want us to do stuff. You know, I got friends all over the world. Just because they can't park here for free doesn't mean anything to this town. With the lighting, I'm not really gonna get involved in it, but if it's gonna be a standard light, you should have half the roads, or at least quarter of the roads with this lights before we start paying. And it's just, you know, what if my block decides we want decorative lighting? You guys gonna pay for it? You know, these public developments, they're nice, they look beautiful. But they got away with things, or they did things that the average citizen can't do. And the lights, I love the lights, but we're all gonna be long gone before this town has those lights. We do it every other year. We do 8 blocks, I think, in each direction, and that's only on Ocean Boulevard. And I love the lights, believe me, I do. But you shouldn't pick a certain group to get the special lights. I'm sorry?
Your 5 minutes is up.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Are there any other public comments? Okay, then what we're going to do now is we're going to have the town council comments, and that's because there's possibility that we're going to have an executive session later. So we'll start it off with Mr. Stamey.
I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I'm sort of like Mr. Coleman said, until we get more lighting in our town and these decorative poles, it is not a standard item to our town. That's extra for them. So I do appreciate people recognizing that. That's going to be $3,500 this town picks up for expense. It didn't really need to. But besides that, I'm glad everybody's here. I hope you had a nice holiday and hope to see you at the next meeting.
Mr. Holder.
Well, Happy New Year to everyone. We got a lot of great things going on in Surfside. And as we talked about the pier and what we're doing down there, we're really seeing the growth of it. And so I think it's great to see, you know, for a new year, all our different departments of the town they're out and got to all the getting the lights down and doing everything to start the year off right. And I hope we can have a great year and one that is financially successful for the town. But thank you, and it's good to see everybody here tonight, and the ones online also. So have a good year. Thank you.
Ms. Keating.
I want to thank everybody for coming out and for those that may have called in. We've addressed a few things here tonight. I think in general, the town is moving in the right direction. We're seeing a lot of improvements with the way we are addressing some of our operations, getting a better handle on what part of our ordinances can and should be changed, as well as some functional operations, tweaking how people interface with the town. So as we move forward with that, we're supposed to have our new website up and running. And again, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, but last I heard, it should be sometime maybe the end of May, 1st of June, we should see a new and improved user-friendly website. That will also not only allow you to access information easier, but also allow the town employees to actually keep relevant and updated information on the webpage themselves without having to go back to the developers and some of the burdensome operations of the current webpage. So I think that will come a long way in the transparency and communication of information. I know Robert's working very hard on getting the 2022 event schedule put together and getting some of that organized. And for that, I thank him very much. He's been given quite a task because council continues to say, we want this a year-round destination. We want to be the #1 family beach in South Carolina. To do that, we need something going on every month. We need to keep our residents busy. We need to keep our tourists interested in coming back year after year after year and at all times of the year. So I think, again, bringing Robert on board was a spectacular idea. I think he's doing a great job. He is moving us forward and embracing our mission of becoming the #1 family beach in South Carolina. So I hope you all had a great holiday. You took some time to rest and enjoy family and friends. For now, this is our first meeting of 2022, and I look forward to the rest of them. Thank you.
Mr. Krecklau.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and those that called in or watching it online. Continue to take an interest in your local government, please. I'd like to thank our public works, our fire, our police department, and everyone that doesn't get thanked very often, even though we all depend on them and they all do a good job. I guess Happy New Year and hope you have a good one. Thanks.
Mr. Kinkin.
I want to thank everybody for that's here and listening in. I want to wish all of you a Happy New Year. Totally agree with Laverne and our staff, safety, public works. They all do a great job, and we should appreciate them because we live in a great town, and they're way responsible. As far as Harbor Lights, I don't want you to think I dislike your neighborhood. I love your neighborhood. When I have visitors, we usually do a golf cart ride through there because it's such a pretty place. I hope that someday that all our streets look like that, but it takes a lot of money, and I don't see it happening anytime soon. But I do not, the residents there, I don't want you to feel like I don't like your neighborhood, because I do. I just don't think that we should be paying for specialty lights that was negotiated early on. But anyway, thank you for coming, and hope you all have a great week. Thank you.
Mr. Drake.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and tuning in, and Happy New Year to everyone. And again, we do live in a beautiful town, and remind everybody how many tourists spend thousands of dollars to come spend 1 week here, and we live here 365 days a year. So it is a beautiful place, and thank you to our police department, fire department, public works, and Robert for all the work you've been doing with our organizing our events. And yes, we do want to be the destination year round. It's always something going on in Surfside, and we want to share it out with the world. We want to share it with the communities. And again, thank you very much for coming out. See you next meeting.
Well, we got a big year coming up, and we got a lot of stuff coming up. And if you take a look at what we did last year with our fall festival and our meatball challenge and all of the events that we had, our 4th of July and everything else, you know, we had record numbers compared to what we had had before. And if you doubt that, just look at the Christmas tree lighting this year. That was huge, and what we had was great. And it's all because our town employees are doing such a good job. So I would ask you, when you see the town employees going around, the guy picking up the debris in your yard and the people working this stuff, I would stop and say hi and thank them for the job that they do, because they do a heck of a job. And we've got a whole lot going on this year. I mean, if you really look at it, we still have to figure out what we're going to do for parking, and what we're going to do for the pier, and what we're going to do for the management of the pier, and what we're going to do for this summer's farmers market. And I mean, we have a whole lot going on, and we got just a little bit of time to do it. So I'm hoping everybody can work together. Council seems to be working a lot better now, and we'll see what we can do to make it a happier place. But it's all for the residents. And I thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just for the residents, your council, one of the goals was for the staff to ensure that we're working with our citizens and understanding what your desire and you understanding what we're doing. So in order to do that, we're going to be having quarterly workshops with our citizens. The first one that we'll be having for the year is on the 13th of this month at 5:30. We'll have all our department heads there, and they're going to give a little overview of what they're doing. And then we want to sit down and hear what you have to say. So please come.
Okay, well, I thank you all. And if we'll know shortly whether we're going into executive session. So I need a motion for that if we're going to do that.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to convene an executive session in accordance with FOIA Section 30-470A1 to discuss potential appointments to the Surfside Beach Committees.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion before we vote on it? Mr. Stamey,
Yes.
Holder,
Yes.
Keating,
Yes.
Krecklaw,
Yes.
Kinkin,
Yes.
and Drake,
Yes.
and myself is yes. So with that, we will be going into executive session.